On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this edition of the African Union Journal, your weekly rendezvous on news around the African Union. We will be looking at the role of regional economic communities in promoting intra-African trade, integration and peace. The African Union has committed the continent's 8 regional blocs to creating a single market for goods and services. Intra-regional trade varies from 5.4% to 90% depending on the regional bloc. Africa's untapped export potential is estimated at $21.9 billion. Partial tariff liberalization under the AfCFTA could generate additional export potential of $9.2 billion over 5 years. Details with Catherine Gobe.
The 2018 agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area (AfCFTA) recognizes regional economic communities as pillars of intra-African trade. This text commits the member states of 8 regional blocs recognized by the African Union to creating a single market for goods and services facilitated by the movement of people in order to deepen the continent's economic integration in line with Agenda 2063.
We should have a continental task force, more or less a joint secretariat made up of the AfCFTA secretariat, the regional economic communities, the private sector, and the partner institutions to provide secretariat services for continental integration. And of course, the legal status of the regional economic communities is going to be clarified that they are active participants in the AfCFTA project.
According to figures from the African Union, intra-regional trade stands at 80% in East Africa, 19% in SADC, 78% in COMESA, and 5.4% and 13.8% respectively in ECAS and ECOWAS. To achieve the goal of bringing together 1.3 billion people in the $3.4 billion economic blocs, experts are calling to greater productive integration of African economies.
So when we are setting up the objective for this kind of platform of these institutions, I think the area of addressing trade complementarity and also the area of reducing policy diversity should be the focus. So any kind of arrangement needs to be program-based. And here, our boosting intra-African trade needs to come to place.
Informal cross-border trade accounts for around 40% of trade in sub-Saharan Africa. According to official data, Africa's untapped export potential currently stands at $21.9 billion, representing 43% of intra-African exports. Partial tariff liberalization under the AfCFTA over the next 5 years could unlock an additional $9.2 billion in export potential.
AfTA has come as an opportunity to now rejig the conversation on Africa's regional integration so that we get to the stage where we can truly say that Africa's integration has come of age. AfTA, at the end of the day, is only one of the many flagship programs of Agenda 2063. We need to make it work. And freedom of movement protocol, as has been exemplified by the African passport, which is supposed to be promoted. These are some of the things that need to come to life now that AfTA is here.
Trade within Africa comprises 61% processed and semi-processed products under the AfCFTA Guided Trade Initiative. This is the second largest free trade area in the world. Its objective is to increase the level of continental trade from 18% to 25% in 10 years and to promote intra-African trade to the tune of $35 billion a year.
Increased collaboration between the African Union and the regional economic communities is accelerating the implementation of integration projects and promoting peace on the continent. In 2024, the AU Peace Fund reached $392 million, close to its target of $400 million. This cooperation has contributed to a 30% reduction in conflict in West and Central Africa since 2022. Fatma Yang gives us the insight in this report.
Enhanced collaboration between the African Union and the regional economic communities can significantly accelerate the implementation of integration projects by sharing resources while promoting peace on the African continent. Indeed, in 2024, the African Union Peace Fund reached an endowment of over $392 million, bringing it closer to its target of $400 million for the smooth running of its activities.
The declaration that we have just adopted perfectly illustrates our unflinching commitment to continental integration through the consolidation of integration between the regional economic communities and the enhancement of coordination between the African Union, the regional economic communities and the regional mechanisms.
However, still in this approach, the African Continental Free Trade Area plays a crucial role by working closely with the regional economic communities. By building on the activities of the regional economic communities, the AFCFTA can strengthen economic integration and promote harmonious development across the continent, according to the chairman of the African Union Commission.
It is fundamental that the AFCFTA look at other activities of the REX as the treaty that established it stipulates. In that way, we will give value to the actions and activities, and also will overcome the difficulties on the relations between the REX and the member states and the Commission and the FTA.
Furthermore, African leaders who play a fundamental role in strengthening collaboration between the African Union and the regional economic communities fully recognize the importance of the synergy in achieving the objectives of integration and sustainable development on the continent.
We have an awesome responsibility to ensure that our integration agenda, encapsulated in the Agenda 2063, becomes a reality. Indeed, we have a rendezvous with history, and we must produce the best possible legacies as leaders on the continent for the African Union to meet the aspirations of our people.
In 2023, the African Union integrated the regional economic communities into its peacekeeping initiatives with an allocated budget of $500 million to support regional peace missions and conflict prevention programs. By building local capacity and fostering regional dialogues, the African Union and the regional economic communities have succeeded in reducing conflict in several sensitive areas, with a 30% decrease in reported violent incidents in West and Central Africa between 2022 and 2024.
According to Tech Cabal Insights, between 2023 and 2027, the number of African online shoppers is expected to grow by an average of 17.9% per year. With the adoption rate of e-commerce rising sharply, security is a fundamental element in user confidence in digital commerce. According to experts, domain name management needs to be strengthened for this purpose. The potential for digital commerce in Africa to stimulate economic growth, improve access to markets and reduce inequalities is enormous. However, to achieve its full potential, it is essential to ensure that users' access to the internet is secured and reliable. It is with this in mind that the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers is taking action.
We have to ensure that the players work in a secure way. So at the African level, I think that talking about the management of domain, for example, CG points, MD points, CM points, and all that, means understanding that we are dealing with critical internet resources, and at the moment, to guarantee the interoperability of the systems, we have to have secure management.
E-commerce penetration among the African population is projected to reach 40% in 2024. Sales will increase by 10.4% a year until 2027 to $59.18 billion, according to digital economic consultancy Tech Cabal Insights in a public report, testifying to the great interest in digital.
On a beaucoup d'autres activités dans le domaine de ce qu'on appelle
We have many other activities in the field of what we call the installation of root servers to reduce latency. We have projects on digital inclusion and therefore ensure that local languages, for example, we can be on the internet. We can have a whole strategy to support the various countries so that everyone can find their way on the internet, and especially for Africa to go on the internet as a priority for development.
The outlook for the sector therefore remains promising in a context marked by the digitalization of payment and the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. As a result, a number of initiatives, such as the Coalition for Digital Africa, which encourages entrepreneurial initiatives aimed at strengthening the internet infrastructure, deserve to be encouraged.
C'est une coalition d'institutions qui ont plus ou moins les mêmes activités, c'est-à-dire dans le domaine du numérique, mais qui partagent 2 à 3 choses.
It's a coalition of institutions that have more or less the same activities in the digital domain, but that share 2 or 3 things. Institutions that believe in an internet that encompasses everyone, that believe in an internet that is secure, that is interoperable, that is unique. So we have a dozen partners at the moment who have joined ICANN to support connectivity in Africa, but also to ensure that Africa can define content that is very important to its development.
Mais aussi faire en sorte que l'Afrique puisse définir des contenus qui sont des contenus très importants à son développement.
To reap the full benefit of digital technology, countries need to create an environment that is conducive to technology. This requires regulation that facilitate competition and market entry, and skills that enable workers to take advantage of the digital economy to accelerate development. On to our news in brief with Edith Natasha. The tripartite free trade agreement bringing together COMESA, EAC and SADC enters into force. In West Africa, the ECOWAS Gender Development Center and the Regional Agency for Agriculture and Food joined forces to promote gender and agricultural development. In Central Africa, ECAS plans to create a regional electricity commission.
The tripartite free trade agreement bringing together 3 of the continent's major economic blocs, including the Southern African Development Community, the East African Community and the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, officially came into force on Thursday, July 25, 2024. To this end, 14 of the 29 Common Market countries have deposited their instrument of ratification, confirming the effectiveness of the tripartite free trade agreement. With the entry into force of this agreement, more than 600 million people and a combined GDP of over $1,000 billion are now linked by a unified trade framework. The ECOWAS Gender Development Center and the Regional Agency for Agriculture and Food intend to pool their resources and skills in order to strengthen the impact of their initiatives in the field and develop joint initiatives that integrate gender and youth issues in West Africa. With this in mind, the 2 institutions held their first working session on July 25, 2024 in Lomé, Togo. The aim of this meeting was to explore avenues of collaboration, and both parties agreed on the importance of training rural women in modern agricultural techniques and financial management in order to make them more self-sufficient. A regional workshop on the proposed creation of the Central African Regional Electricity Regulatory Commission was held on Thursday, July 25, 2024 in Libreville, the Gabonese capital. The aim of the meeting was to examine the feasibility of the Central African Regional Electricity Regulatory Commission in the light of existing bilateral and multilateral agreements between ECAS member states and third parties, among others. Once set up, COREG will regulate interconnections, pooling efforts to bring energy to countries with no infrastructure. With an energy potential of around 149,000 megawatts, including 100,000 megawatts in DR Congo, Central Africa is in a position to meet its electricity demand and supply neighboring regions, according to experts.
Looking at Africa's relationship with the rest of the world, Catherine Gobet looks at climate resilience and sustainable development in small island developing states. The COVID-19 pandemic has increased the vulnerability of small island developing states already weakened by the consequences of climate change and debt crisis. However, efforts are being made to mobilize resources to exceed 10% of aid to finance climate action and disasters risk reduction between 2021 and 2023.
Their small size and above all their geographical isolation are factors that accentuate the vulnerabilities of small islands developing states. Among the many challenges facing these islands are dependence on complex import and supply chains, global shocks caused by extreme weather conditions, destructive terrorism, the COVID-19 pandemic, and regional wars. According to the United Nations, more than 60% of the countries suffering the greatest losses from natural disasters are states, but they receive only 10% of aid for financing climate action and disaster risk reduction. Experts believe that the situation makes it difficult to meet the challenges of sustainable development as states redirect funds intended for development projects towards post-disaster reconstruction.
To the increased threat of climate change and environmental degradation on the lives of the youth and their lack of educational and employment opportunities. The speakers called for multifaceted and holistic approaches to greater investments in strengthening human capital and put forward tangible solutions across health, education, and employment.
Another challenge facing states is the infrastructure deficit. Their geographical remoteness generates high costs in areas such as communications, energy, sanitation, and transport. Madagascar is a case in point, with only 54.4% of the population having access to water and only 12.3% to sanitation by 2022, according to World Bank figures. At the 4th International Conference on Small Islands Developing States, held in May 2024 in Antigua and Barbuda under the overall theme, Charting the Cost to Resilient Prosperity, the international community committed to increasing the capacity of states to achieve sustainable development, including the 2030 Agenda and its sustainable development goals.
Much more must be done to ensure the global financial system delivers for SIDS. The outcome of the high-level meeting, the call to action on mobilizing resources for SIDS, jointly issued by the UN Secretary General and Prime Minister Brown of Antigua and Barbuda, underscores that concerted and urgent action is needed to enable SIDS to finance the implementation of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS.
The United Nations Population Fund estimates that 50% of the population of states is 25 years old or younger, a population for whom food is a crucial issue. In Africa's small islands developing states, we have a population of over 4 million. Up to 90% of food is imported.
This is a global injustice, as you heard the Secretary General say, and the onus is really on the top 20 emitters to keep the promise of the Paris Agreement. Evidence over the last 4 years show that sustainable development prospects for SIDS have worsened as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, conflicts, and continued economic turmoil, already adding to the challenging landscape because of the unique vulnerabilities.
Since 1992, Chapter 17 of Agenda 21 for the protection of oceans, seas, and coastal areas has recognized the ecological fragility and vulnerability of states due to their small size, limited resources, geographical dispersion, and isolation from markets.
1.5.
The first East African Community Regional Conference on Education, commemorating the African Union's Year of Education, will be held from the 12th to the 15th of August in Arusha, Tanzania, under the conference theme, Educating a Fit African for the 21st Century, Collective Action for Quality, Inclusive and Lifelong Learning in East Africa. This event, inspired by the AU Year of Education and organized by the East African Community and its partners, will bring together stakeholders from across the education sector to discuss best practice, strengthen networks, and reaffirm commitment to improve education for all children in the region. The first African Urban Forum will be held from the 4th to the 6th of September 2024 at the Adwa Victory Memorial in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Organized by the Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security of the African Union Commission in cooperation with the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the forum, whose theme is Sustainable Urbanization for Africa's Transformation Agenda 2063, is a platform for exchange on the opportunities and challenges of urbanization in Africa. The aim is to unleash its potential. The 6th edition of the African Prosperity Conference will be held in Kampala, Uganda, from the 25th to the 27th of September 2024 under the theme Green Economy, E-Commerce and Integration of Services. A biennial event, the African Prosperity Conference brings together business owners, government representatives, financial experts, and private sector leaders to explore business opportunities and foster meaningful collaboration. Co-organized by the Uganda National Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the 2024 edition of the African Prosperity Conference offers an opportunity for women-owned and youth-led businesses to connect with resource providers, government officials, corporate buyers, and business professionals.
Versatile and innovative, Valentin MBOZO'O is a Cameroonian engineer specializing in IT. Since 2012, he has been at the head of the Central African Interbank Monetary Group. GIMAC's main mission is financial inclusion within the Central African Economic and Monetary Community. It offers a number of services, including interbank cards for withdrawal from more than 3,000 ATMs and electronic payment terminals.
Valentin MBOZO'O, a native of Cameroon, is an experienced executive and manager in telecommunications, electronic banking, and consulting who is helping to promote Cameroon internationally. A computer engineer, Valentin MBOZO'O leads the activities of the Interbank Electronic Payment Group of Central Africa.
Le GIMAC est le processeur monétique de la CEMAC.
The GIMAC and the GIMAC electronic money process offers interoperable services, both mobile card transfer and value-added services, and any other kind of payment.
Valeur ajoutée de toute autre sorte de paiement.
After obtaining an engineering diploma from the National Institute of Telecommunications of Paris in 1992 and a certificate of advanced studies in advanced computer systems design from the CENAM in Paris, Valentin MBOZO'O embarked on his professional career. For many years, the engineer managed several entities and projects. His career path was marked by his move to CBC Bank in January 2003 as Director of Information Systems. In 2008, in Yaoundé, he became Director of the Bank Card Production Center at the Central African Electronic Money Office. This experience will influence his career as he will later be projected manager for the reform of the electronic banking system at the Bank of Central African States.
Nous sommes un acteur clé de l'inclusion financière, un acteur clé de la matérialisation du numérique.
We are financial inclusion actors, a key role in the materialization of a digital at the service of the population of CEMAC, and this is manifested by our interoperability offers. We've been offering card services for 10 years since 2015. Since 2020, we've been offering what's been called integrated electronic banking in a set of convergent, instant, mobile transfer, value-added payment services for the entire CEMAC population.
Instantané, mobile, transfert, services à valeur ajoutée de paiement de toutes sortes aux populations de la CEMAC.
Appointed General Manager of the Interbank Electronic Payment Group of Central Africa in 2012, Valentin MBOZO'O is committed to democratizing bank cards in the CEMAC zone so that all CEMAC citizens, wherever they may be in the community, can carry out withdrawal and payment transactions without difficulty. According to the expert, the popularization of electronic banking should make it possible to increase the banking rate in the CEMAC zone.
Le GIMAC qui offre la possibilité de distribuer de l'argent.
GIMAC offers the possibility of distributing money from mobile banking accounts and mobile money accounts to all operators in the sub-region and to all banks within a few hours, whether during the week or the day. We are therefore a very powerful vector for financial inclusion and a materialization. I insist on the word materialization.
Une matérialisation, j'insiste sur le mot matérialisation.
GIMAC's main mission is to promote financial inclusion within the Central African Economic and Monetary Community. Since January 2015, GIMAC cards have been operational in the sub-region, in the 53 banks and 14 microfinance institutions interconnected through the GIMAC Pay platform. GIMAC Pay connects over 37 million active electronic purses in CEMAC and enables 3 million GIMAC and international cardholders to carry out interoperable and convergent transactions in the ecosystem.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us on this edition of the African Union Journal. Stay tuned for more programs on Africa 24 English.
On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afrexim Bank.